Ogletree, professor at Harvard Law School, acted as counsel to Professor Gates throughout the incident. He also continues to be advisor on police behavior to both Harvard University and the city of Cambridge, and is special counsel to President Obama. Professor Ogletree has a new book out. It's called The Presumption of Guilt: The Arrest of Henry Louis Gates, Jr. and Race, Class, and Crime in America. Your summation of the whole incident, what you've concluded as two reports, the one coming out today, which you've seen, and a previous report have come out.
Well, the real summation is that the hero in all of this is Lucia Whalen, the woman who called 911 when there was a report of it. She's the hero because of three things. The first thing, if you listen closely, she never presumed the guilt of Professor Gates. She said that I see two gentlemen on the porch. They might have left their key. They might work there or live there. That doesn't sound like a burglary. She reports that they brought two suitcases. I've been a lawyer for over 30 years. I don't ever remember a client in any criminal case bringing the suitcases full of clothing to a burglary. Now, taking them from a burglary, I mean, it couldn't be clearer, right? She never, ever, 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 ever said that the people who were barging in the door were black and were in backpacks, but that's in Sergeant Crowley's report. And the other thing that I think you've covered that people need to read in this book is that Professor Gates provided his Harvard ID that has his photograph on it. It says Henry Louis Gates, Jr., officer, Harvard University. He provided his driver's license that has his photograph on it, his address, and that he's a valid driver. What more can a citizen do? And what I worry about is that people will focus on Henry Louis Gates, Jr., the esteemed Harvard University professor, and not focus on the fact, what would they feel like when someone comes to their house, suspects them of a burglary, and they produce ID in their own house. But here's the point. Sergeant Crowley could have arrested him. Arrest him if you think he's committed a burglary. We'll settle it later. He could have searched the house if he thought burglars were there. He didn't do that. This whole thing took 6 minutes from start to finish. And Gates did everything he could to prove that he was who he said he was. And the officer still was defiant. And that's why Gates says, call the Harvard University police. They know me. You can't ask for a citizen doing more than he did. And don't judge him by the fact that he is a successful African-American in this nice house and nice neighborhood who loves the police. Professor Gates loves police. He says everybody else, these criminals, get the criminals out of my neighborhood, out of my restaurant, away from my car. He loves the police, but he couldn't imagine this would happen to him. And that's why I'm talking about class and not just crime. He did say, do you know who I am? Right? Well, obviously, the officer didn't. That's why he locked him up, right? But the reality is that he thought he had achieved a status in his own community that police would at least call the Harvard University police. There's a guy here who says he's Henry Louis Gates, Jr. Do you know him? Yes, Sergeant, we know him. He's a neighbor, he's a friend, he's a professor, he's a good guy. None of that happened.
And your reproduction of the transcripts of the radio transmissions indicates that Crowley did acknowledge in those transmissions that he was claiming that he was Henry Louis Gates.
Make that point clear. He was claiming that he was Henry Louis Gates. He said, I know, here I am. Look at the picture. It's me. And his wallet opens up so you can see it. And that's why I wrote the book, The Presumption of Guilt. Everyone said, wait a minute, there's no presumption of guilt in our legal system. I said, that's exactly right. The title of The Presumption of Guilt is to remind us we presume guilty of some people without knowing the facts. We do it based on race, on class, on clothing, on where you drive, where you walk, where you shop, where you eat. And that's why The Presumption of Guilt is the title, to remind people, let's not make judgments about people. Let's judge them by, as I said before, the content of their character, not skin color. That's the problem.
So then President Obama says the police acted stupidly, and all hell broke loose.
Right, and I say in the book, this exchange blackened President Obama, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. You just repeated what the world heard and didn't hear all of it. The clip said it. He said the Cambridge police acted stupidly when you arrest a man in his own house. But all they heard was the president take the side of his friend, Henry Louis Gates, Jr., and that blackened him. He became the black president, not the president. And people are saying he took the side of his buddy, two Harvard guys, over hardworking and honest police officer James Crowley, the #1. But he said something else that people forgot. He said there's a historic problem in this country of black and Hispanic men being the subjects of racial profiling. And as a state senator in Illinois, I supported legislation to address that. So the president did two things. African Americans applauded that, said, hey, did you just hear our president say that there's a racial profiling problem in America? Wow. And you know what? President probably has not been as candid either before or since then about an issue of race.
Well, let's talk about President Obama after he came under fire, saying that the police had acted stupidly, backtracking from the comment.
Because this has been ratcheting up, and I obviously helped to contribute ratcheting it up, I want to make clear that in my choice of words, I think I unfortunately gave an impression that I was maligning the Cambridge Police Department or Sergeant Crowley specifically. And I could have calibrated those words differently. And I told this to Sergeant Crowley.
What did you think of President Obama basically apologizing?
Well, what both of you know is that I've known President Obama since he was at Harvard Law School in 1988. I've known his wife, Michelle Obama, longer since she was at Harvard Law School in 1985. And I cherish both of them and all the students I've had the chance to mentor.
Teach them?
Yes, yes. And that to me was a great experience. And the first time to have a president younger than I am is a great experience as well. And here's what it says, is that President Obama is trying to fix the problem. He should never have stepped into this, number one, right? That's agreeable. Health care was on a roll in July. He was having this press conference in 59 minutes. Great. Everyone understood. And in July, remember, we had